If you're one of our regular subscribers, you'll notice my buddy Jake is not here with me on Saturday morning. Saturday mornings is when we normally do a joint and much longer video that synopsis really of the week. But Jake has an appointment this morning to get fitted for new glasses, and he has a very busy schedule, so he has to take care of that. We'll try to do the long form program tomorrow. That would be Sunday. Some of you may not see it anyway until next week or even well beyond that. A couple of quick notes. We're going to be talking a little bit about the latest crises that plagues not only America, but the President of the United States. I can't imagine over the last 7-8 months how such bad luck, and I know I don't really believe in luck, good or bad, but what's going on right now and happening to this president is just beyond all belief. I'm trying to find some historical precedent. Jimmy Carter had the failed hostage rescue attempt, and then he had a rabbit attack him while he was rowing a boat, and some other things went wrong, and it all just seemed to coalesce in a matter of a few months and helped push Mr. Carter out the door and led to his departure after just one term. But I got to be honest with you, Donald Trump is a different type of president, and I read a column this morning from one of my favorite writers. His name is Holman W. Jenkins Jr. He's a member of the editorial board at the Wall Street Journal and a conservative. He also keeps a very open mind. But he says at the tail end of his column today that Mr. Trump may not have wanted the presidency. He may have been running in the beginning because it was a good marketing effort. That's an argument you often hear from the left. But he has now realized that he is very important. He's an integral piece of the puzzle when it comes to the future of America's culture and its traditional values. Because I'm going to tell you something, what the other side is offering, maybe people just haven't given it that much thought. But if Joe Biden comes in and he said, I'll shut down coal plants, he also plans to shut down oil rigs, fracking, the use of natural gas. And when and if that happens, and it could happen all in the first 6 months he's in office, do you realize what you'll be paying for gasoline at the fuel pumps? Because suddenly we'll go from energy independence, which we've achieved over the last decade, with no help, by the way, of Democrats. Most of the fracking revolution took place on lands that were private lands, and the federal government couldn't stop it from happening. But Barack Obama tried. We've got people who may take over Congress. Right now, they're salivating over control of the Senate. And if they get on board with Joe Biden, and then they're going to print up more money for this Green New Deal. Now, Biden hemmed and hawed about it, trying to disavow it during the debate the other night. But it's right there on his campaign website. And so they'll borrow even more money. We crossed the $27 trillion debt limit. That is, the actual national debt is pegged at $27 trillion now. It's a ridiculous number. And no one really knows how big it is. Could be even larger than that. And when you've got unfunded liabilities all around the country, there was an estimate about 15 years ago that if you count up all of those, we're about $131 trillion in debt. It is just an obscene amount of money. You can't get your arms around it, but what it does mean eventually is a greatly reduced standard of living if you're an American. And if the president, Biden, if he becomes president, decides you're going to pay $8 or $10 a gallon for gasoline through high taxes to discourage its use, that may be great if you live in Washington and you can take the metro to work, or New York City and you can take the subway to work, or San Francisco and you can jump on a streetcar. But if you live like I do in southern Idaho, there's not much close by. There are people I know who drive 100 miles each way every day just because that's what the job demands. This is going to put a huge crimp in middle America, but these people don't care. In their mind, we're all a bunch of deplorables and we should probably die anyway. I think that's the belief. And when I say that, I'm not kidding you. Have you seen some of the liberal reactions to the president coming down with coronavirus? A guy who worked in the Obama White House says that he hopes President Trump dies. What's wrong with these people? They're godless. They have a bill that they're planning. We have a law in Idaho that's being challenged right now, and it protects your daughters if they're playing high school or college sports from competing against men who think they are women. Now, you may not think this is a big deal if you don't have a 16-year-old who's trying to compete, but if it comes up to where you do have a 16-year-old and she's facing a 6'2", 210-pound person who thinks he's a woman, then that is an issue. Well, the Democrats are talking about making this, clarifying it so this can take place nationwide. We've had this tremendous cultural change over the last 30 years in this country. When I was in high school back in the late 1970s, if I had grown my hair out long, okay, I did. It was the style at the time for men. But if I'd grown my hair out long and said I thought I was a girl and I was going to go play girl sports, peer pressure is not always a good thing. We think of it always as being negative, but sometimes peer pressure can be a good thing. And I would have been laughed out of my high school. And that I'm just telling you something. What we're seeing is an effort to try to recruit people into various lifestyles that will eventually break down the American family beyond where it's already broken down. The effort is to completely strip away bare all the vestiges of the culture that we have known so that they can reestablish something. It may not be as bad as Pol Pot in Cambodia, but who knows? Who knows? They'll set the calendar at year zero and they'll start all over again. In Mexico in the 1920s, they were shooting priests and hanging Christians, mainly Catholics there, but hanging them because the socialists said that they were just superstitious people and they had to be cleared out of the way. In the French Revolution, the same thing happened. It happened in the Russian Revolution. It's happened especially the last couple of 100 years in various parts of Asia. To say it can't happen here, I'm sorry, folks, but we've seen a public over the last several months that has more than willingly gone along with this hysteria over an illness that basically has little impact on most people who ever encounter it. And yet we've got a public out there willing to shame anybody else that will not walk around in a mask. They called a football game off here last night in Idaho at halftime. Ammon Bundy's son was playing in the game. Bundy went on the road to see his son play. He wasn't wearing a mask. He was asked to leave. He did. But they shut the game down at halftime. And what the heck are we doing? We don't do it over cold or flu, do we? I'm telling this Holman W. Jenkins Jr., who writes this column for the Wall Street Journal, has pointed out, if you follow this advice, then you would never drive because driving's dangerous, always dangerous. Again, maybe that's why they want to take your car away from you. But with what they've got planned for this country, Donald Trump right now is the last thing standing between despotism and tradition. And right now, it is hanging by a thread. It is hanging by a thread. I don't know what else we can possibly do at this point. Most of our neighbors just seem to be, they're thinking short term. They're not thinking about what these things are going to mean to them in their own lives. They take their liberties for granted. I'll tell you what, when they're not there anymore, these people would eliminate the Bill of Rights because they'll pack the court and the newcomers will just simply start ripping it to shreds. They're going to do it to eliminate your right to bear arms. They'll do it to silence you because they'll say your speech is hurtful. They've already shredded right to assembly. It just goes on and on and on. This is not child's play any longer. We've got to take this seriously. I got to run. I could add more. They're going to open the borders and flood people in here and sign them up as Democrats and add new states. And the list will just be, it'll be just astounding. You better wake up. I live in this country and I appreciate what it's done for me and my family. And if the rest of you screw it up, I'm going to be really, really pissed. If you like our videos, click on the subscribe button above. You can also leave any comments in the comments section below.